Morning. This is attempt 2. I just spent 10 minutes recording a video for you guys and something happened on YouTube and I got disconnected. So the last 10 minutes of what I've just recorded is gone. And it was fabulous. I told you guys how to solve poverty, how to solve world hunger, how to fix the environment and replace the ozone layer, and the best places to view the Halley's Comet, and when God's coming back. And I told you all that in 10 minutes, and you guys missed it because it got deleted. Okay, sorry, my sense of humor is well intact today. Good morning. It is Wednesday, August the 5th, and we're going to talk about crystals for protection today, not world peace. Sorry, you missed out. um, so crystals for protection. So there are a few different ways that you can use crystals for protection. Um, you can use crystals with your body. You can use crystals in a personal space like a bedroom or an office. You can use crystals on properties like where your house is or where your business or your hobbies are. You can use crystals on a global scale and help build a global network of crystals. So there are a lot of different ways that you can use crystals for protection. When using crystals on the body, I tend to tell people to go with dark crystals or heavy crystals. So crystals with either a metallic content to them or crystals that are, in the family of like smoky quartz or obsidians or even tourmalines, things that are really dark, not necessarily murky, but dark. That darkness, those dark colors, I think tend to be the best for protection. And those crystals that are in the dark colors, you'll find a lot of times when you look them up, almost every time they'll say something about protection and or grounding. Um, when using crystals for the body, what I usually suggest is to either put the crystals in jewelry or put them in pockets. If you don't have pockets, if you're like me and a lot of your clothing isn't made with pockets, women can tuck them in their bras. Just be careful what you have. You don't want to put something really sharp in there or something that's going to flake off. So I like to make sure that it's something that's been well tumbled, something that's going to be stable. Um, I've used smoky quartz, I've used hematite, I've put both of those in my bra and I haven't had much trouble. Um, but if you're using like a natural hematite or something that's got really flaky layers to it, or even like sometimes tourmaline, if you get like raw black tourmaline, it'll dust and flake. You don't really want that next to your skin. You don't want that flaking off on you. So I wouldn't suggest that. You would put these in your pocket um, for situations like having hard conversations with people where you know that the two points of view are contradictory to each other or are not really coming from the same direction. You can use this for when you're doing things like job interviews or you're trying to achieve something, because those crystals will not only help to ground you and help you to stay focused on the topic, but it will protect you from any perceived negativity or other other kinds of energy that's coming your way that may not be helpful to what you're trying to do. Um, like I said, I would usually carry those for conversations with me because I tend to have a lot of conversations with people where what I have to say isn't really what they want to hear. Um, and I think it's something that needs to be heard, but we all have our perspectives. So I imagine if I had people come to me and spout off some of the stuff I've said to people, I wouldn't be super happy either. But I try to keep, when I do have those kinds of conversations with folks, I do try to keep something like hematite on me because my ability to ramp up and get emotional or to perceive emotions from them is pretty strong. And I like to keep that in check because there's no room for a whole lot of emotional talk when you're trying to have important conversations with people. You can use crystals in spaces. I have crystals in my shop here. You can't see any of them from the camera because of the way the lights are set. But I have one back here in this corner. I have one I have 3 rooms in my suite. I have one in the room behind this monitor in the opposite corner. In that same room across the way from it, I have a third one, and I have a fourth one in this corner in the room right next to us, the third room. And then I have a fifth one in the center right underneath the ceiling fan. And what I do with those crystals is I set them in place, and then I stand underneath of them with a point, and I start in the center, and I draw to each crystal, and I build a pyramid of energy. And I built that pyramid of energy to persuade good commerce, to persuade the removal of bad energies, to encourage good, positive conversation and attitudes. Essentially, it's just to protect my business and to protect me energetically from people who would want to cause harm in any fashion, whether they're aware of it or unaware of it. And this is through judgment, through prejudice, through thievery, through just general nastiness or aggression. It's there to be like an energetic, it's just an energetic ward. And then above my front door to my suite as well, I have another crystal, and it works kind of like a house alarm. And what I mean by that is um, you charge that crystal to be alert and aware to what is coming in and out of the door, and to help to create a filter to adjust the energies coming through that accordingly. So, for example, my husband and I used to live on the south side of Madison in an apartment complex, and it was kind of a rough neighborhood. I mean, it wasn't like super, super bad. It wasn't like, the slums of Chicago or New York or anything, but it was rough enough. And we kept a door ward. And when we would leave the apartment, we would tap the door ward and let the door ward know, hey, we're heading out, keep a watch on the apartment. And when we'd come back, we'd tap it again. And this was kind of like our own version of a house alarm. Now, that being said, if you live in a dangerous neighborhood where the possibility of somebody entering your apartment is very, very real, go ahead and hang your energetic ward, but get yourself an actual alarm too. Get yourself some actual protection. In all magic, whether you're doing spells or you're doing energy work or healing work, not only should you keep ethics in mind, but keep practicality and intelligence in mind too. Always be practical. Don't do candle spells when nobody's at home so you can burn your house down. If your house needs to be protected through an electronic alarm system, use the electronic alarm system. Don't rely solely on crystals. If you need to have some physical healing done, also see a doctor. Don't just do physical, or don't do energetic healing. Energetic healing will go a long way, but I kind of feel like the people who have created science, people who have created medicine, people who have created protective measures, these people were given these ideas to create these things through spirit as well as another means to protect ourselves. And the universe is more prone to help those who help ourselves first. If we are making movement toward protecting ourselves, the universe will help to provide other protections as well. Okay? So be practical. Don't just rely on your ward or your crystal. But that is something that you can do, especially if, like at that time, we had a lot of people coming through our apartment because we were running a spiritual group in our apartment. Having a ward on that door helps to kind of put a filter down that people have to pass through before they can come into your space, so that they can leave some of that negative energy outside or leave undesired energies outside. Now, we talked last week about ethics and not changing other people, but changing yourself first. The way I look at it, when you put a ward up for people to go through like that, an energetic ward, what you're doing is it's essentially like planting a waterfall. If you plant a waterfall and people walk through it, people know they're going to get wet, right? So you can choose to walk through that waterfall or to not walk through that waterfall, to get wet or to not get wet. When I put wards on my space, I try to make them fairly obvious so that people can see them, so that on some level they are consciously aware that there is something there. They can choose to come through that ward or they can choose to not. If they choose to not, it's probably for the best. So that's kind of how I feel about doing ward work like that. You can do energetic wards for your house the same way. You can plant crystals on the corners of your property of your house or the property of whatever it is that you're working at, whether it's your home or your business or your farm or whatever it is. You can put crystals on the corners, and then you can energetically draw that pyramid again that I showed you before, right? You can draw that and help protect that space. When you draw pyramids, make sure that you're actually being intentional about what it is that you're doing. Same thing with all magic, all energy that you're doing. Be intentional, be specific, be clear about what it is that you're hoping for and trying to do. And that will make your work that much better. Okay, it'll make it that much stronger because there's clarity to what you're trying to do. There's intention to what you're trying to do. There are also crystal grids that are worldwide. There's a few different organizations that have crystals that are planted around in different countries and different continents. And they have groups of people around each of these crystals. And sometimes, like there's the Peace Meditation Crystal Grid, I think it's called. I could be wrong. But they have crystals planted on every continent. And about once a month, they send out a big email to all these people on their mailing list, and they say, okay, at this time, on this day in the month, we are all going to take a moment and we're going to send energy towards these crystals. And the purpose of this is to build a web of peace and calming and healing for the planet, for its people, for ourselves. It's going to spread out across the whole planet because all of these crystals are connected. And they're set up there. Each of the crystals is its own little grid itself where they're set down. So it's not just like somebody threw a rock in the ground and said, here lies crystals. There's actually little grids, like little prescribed grids. And you can go online and they'll show you pictures of all the different grids, and you can actually like download little cards and meditate on the specific grids, if like particularly if that section of the world has had some kind of an upheaval. You can meditate on that particular section of the grid and strengthen that grid so that there's a little more energy and healing and protection going on in that section of the world, as opposed to another one that maybe doesn't need it quite as much. But that's the idea of like a big World Wide Web. World Wide Web. Pre-internet. Sorry, I am punchy today. So those are some different ways that you can use crystals. Now in the shop here, like my crystal grid that I was telling you about, that's all done with clear faceted crystals. They've been faceted and cut into like little balls, so they're really attractive and they're fairly visible, especially if you know what you're looking for, but most people notice one or two of them. They definitely notice the center one because it hangs down from a ceiling fan, so it's kind of right there in the middle of the room. But I don't try and hide my crystals generally. When I do people's houses, if there's a concern about how somebody may feel about crystals, like a guest, then I will sometimes like take the points and hide them up over the top of like door frames or window frames. I'll try to obscure them a little bit. I've seen people who've done crystal work where they have bigger pieces and they put them on the floor and then they'll put a chair or something in front of it. So that grid is still there, that grid is intact, but the physical crystal is obscured from most people coming through because for one reason or another you just don't want people to see them or mess with them, because some people, they'll see a crystal and they'll want to go touch it and pick it up and mess with it, and then you kind of upset your grid when you do that. So you want them to be fairly stationary. So that's my 15 minutes on crystal protection. I hope this helps you guys out. I am going to do money here next week or the week after. I think I'm going to do something about money spell and maybe one about self-love. But if you have anything else that you want to see, let me know. Leave me a message. I do see messages. I don't always get back to them right away, but I do see them all. But I hope you guys have a really great week going into the weekend. I hope it's a beautiful time where you are. I hope the weather's beautiful where you are. And I will see you guys again next Wednesday. Have a good one. Bye.